AI, it's being elevated into the status of religion with different churches. All AIs hallucinate. And you can't take hallucinations out of deep learning and of transformers. There are outrageous claims about AI capabilities, which are simply not true. There is not a lack of tools right now, but there's a lack of sophisticated governance. How do you apply agency in the age of AI? Literacy comes first, fluency comes second. That should be at the heart of all educational reforms. And I'm not seeing that.
That is Anastassia Lauterbach, linguist, trained clinical psychologist, Global Hall of Fame honoree for business excellence, and now AI strategist, podcaster, and CEO of AI Edutainment, an AI literacy company based in Basel, Switzerland. Anastassia works in a deeply interdisciplinary way, drawing on computer science, economics, psychology, neuroscience, and the arts to make complex ideas about AI and disruption understandable for everyone. She is on a mission to make AI literacy globally accessible and prepares for the major shifts that this technology will have on our daily lives. My name is Peter Marcus Bach, and this is the Grand Challenges Podcast, a show about inspiring individuals who are stepping up to tackle the global challenges that our world is facing in their own unique ways. We reflect on the many out-of-the-box ways our guests have navigated the complexity and intricacies of our environment at the cutting edges of science, engineering, technology, and design. On today's show, Anastassia and I engage in a wide-ranging conversation around the disruptive force of AI, from the fallacy of blind trust in large language models to urgent educational reforms and societal shifts needed to cope with this rapidly advancing technology. We discuss 4 key pillars of responsible AI, distinguish between AI literacy and fluency, and pinpoint the most important steps that humans need to take to safeguard our future. Visit tgcpodcast.show for detailed information and show notes on this episode. Thank you for joining us today, and please enjoy the show. Anastassia, absolutely delighted to be here today and to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a true privilege. I love your background.
Oh, thank you so much. And yeah, I'm delighted to be in Basel. It's good to get out of Zurich. I've been doing Lausanne quite a lot recently, but nice to come to Basel. So thank you for welcoming me here.
And it's a nice week because we are 1 week after Art Basel. Art Basel completely transforms the city. And in terms of AI, if you look into a structure as a walled garden, there is a disruption coming in, and out of sudden, this whole structure changes. Yeah.
Wow.
For example, Basel is not really very difficult to navigate around unless you have Art Basel. And then you need to wait for your Uber, and they accuse in the restaurant, and all hotels are overcrowded. So complete disruption of the structure.
I think my wife and I would disagree sometimes. Driving in Basel is, I don't know, we get very confused, and I think the GPS does as well.
Yeah, that might be.
But I certainly have to come more often because, City of Museums, as they call it. There's one I have to visit, Tangale Museum, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are 40 museums in Basel. I haven't visited everything yet.
Okay.
But I'm looking forward to visit more, and I absolutely adore Fondazione Bailey.
Okay.
In my eyes, this is one of the best museums in Europe. And, Renzo Piano building speaks 1,000 words. It's really engraved into the surrounding nature. And they are opening up another building, I think in a couple of months, because it's done now, but they need to really feel it with life from the inside.
Okay.
And Fondazione Bailey has a huge collection. So it's not just exhibitions coming from somewhere, but they have a real collection, and they need to distribute it and think how to position, the art inside of a new building. So I'm curious what they will come up with. But, all the museums are fantastic. I learned that the Kunstmuseum is one of the oldest museums of people because it was kind of, funded by merchants and wealthy, civilians in Basel, merchants who donated arts or were buying arts for the city. And this is kind of, the culture of Switzerland, which is based not just by royalties and someone, concentration on feudals in some castles with money, but actually people in commerce doing things for the common good.
It's incredible when you read human history and you see how the merchants or anyone with that philanthropic heart wants to then dedicate some of their, I don't know, earnings is the bad word, it has a bad connotation, but some of their wealth to society and for the good of that, and to preserve humanity as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
But in terms of art, there is literally an elephant in the room. Well, we're sitting right next to one. It's actually a giant grand piano that you have here. A beautiful location to do a podcast recording. But yeah, I melted when I saw the grand piano. I mean, I did piano when I was young, 4 years old until about 18. I got all the way to the first diploma level of one of the UK systems, the Trinity College. But music was a very important aspect of my childhood and still is very important. You know, listeners, you can go check out some of the other episodes where I talk a bit about my love for music.
Yeah.
But you also had the idea of learning piano and becoming a professional pianist at some point.
Well, the story is actually, I was first ice skating, and then at the age of 4, I had an injury. And my mom decided to take me from ice skating and put me into music school. We did not have a grand piano at home. It was a very bad piano, and that was the piano I had. So I have an absolute pitch, and I can actually play music from hearing. It's simply easy for me. And for example, if I sit in front of an orchestra, I hear every single musician. If I concentrate, I can pick up everything what is happening, or a choir. Same, I can hear individual voices if I'm focusing on people. And there's nothing to be proud about, because, some people have a fantastic sense of smell, or they see differently from others, and I can hear things. So my daughter is, by the way, the same. I started in music school. My parents have zero understanding whatsoever about music. So they just enjoy music, but this is it. I had zero understanding of music. And some of my peers, they were coming from the families of musicians. They had grand pianos at home. And I was considered dumb in music school. I've never, it's true. So, but I enjoyed very much learning about music history, and I was simply winning all kind of competitions in composing music.
Oh, incredible.
So that was easy for me. And music literature and then composition, they were my favorite subjects. But in my final year, so I was 13 years old, I made the first prize. Why? Frankly, I do not understand. But, the point was that at some point in time, I stopped caring about those rules, and I simply played by hearing, by ears, and not by the text. And it was recognized. I did not consider myself good enough to pursue a piano career. And frankly, my parents did not have any money to invest into grand piano, and we did not have space. So we had a 2-room apartment with 4 people in it and a dog. So this is how I grew up. Even now, I have zero problems to focus on stuff, even if people are dancing around, because, this is how I grew up. It's a habit. It's a skill. But I gave this love for music to my daughter. She started at the age of 3. And I stepped down from all my corporate assignments to actually educate her, to teach her. And she's currently living what I could not live because of, financial means and just constraints of day by day. I bought a grand piano for her when she was 3 years old.
Wow.
So, and we immediately started with a proper instrument. And I simply love piano music. I am curious, who is your favorite pianist?
Well, I guess you have different buckets here. So, I don't play my namesake, Bach. Actually, I'm not related. I did check. But somehow I just never got into Bach. So the Baroque pieces were just a bit too complex for me at the time of learning. I really enjoy Maurice Ravel and Claude Debussy. Yeah,
and who are your favorite pianists?
The pianists. I don't follow as many more in terms of jazz pianists. So back in the day, so when I was listening a lot, it would have been, Lang Lang is the obvious one. But I know there's also a Japanese pianist, I think her name is Uehara Hiromi. She, oh my God, when you listen to the way she plays, it's like your brain, it's like music to your brain because it's so complex and you just see the nimbleness of her fingers. So I started in classical, but I really enjoyed jazz in the later years.
It's interesting because I hate Lang Lang. So for me, if a robot plays a piano, this is what it will look like. But it's a very personal choice. My favorite pianist is Grigory Sokolov, not because, I was born in Russia, but just his mastery, it's unbelievable. And he stopped performing with orchestras a while ago. So he's doing programs every year, and he's all I think he's over 80 and he's still performing. And what he does, so how he reads text, like a simple Schubert sonata, it's not a lot, let's say, in terms of complexity, but what he sees there, or Haydn sonatas, what he's doing with that. And this year he has a Beethoven program. I don't know what exactly he's going to play, but I will be hearing him in a couple of weeks in Salzburg, and I'm looking forward to it. So this is really my favorite pianist.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then you say a name that, of course, reminds me a lot of the stuff I played, Beethoven. I think that was pretty much the most played composer.
And by the way, Bach is one of my favorite composers. Because Bach helps me to think. And I love writing while listening to music. And usually Bach is what I have as a background music. It's interesting. Bach has a very special place in my universe.
Interesting. Yeah, you take me back to my days of learning music theory with Bach. Maybe a reason I avoided Bach, apart from sometimes struggling with the inventions, when I was trying to get more dexterity, is that in some of the years you had to then try to complete some of his chorales. It was a literal exercise on the music exam. I think at some point I got sick of seeing Bach chorales. But I guess Debussy is, for me, one of the most interesting composers, because also just the semi-Asian influence in some of Debussy's pieces, which I find very incredible. Growing up in Singapore, it was something that just felt different. And Ravel for his complexity. Le Tombeau de Couperin is my all-time favorite.
We absolutely love it. So my daughter and myself, we absolutely love it. So she participated in a competition in Umbria in Italy 4 years ago. And she actually played Pagode by Debussy.
Oh, wow.
And someone played Ravel Tombeau de Couperin. And it was such a joyful experience.
Incredible.
Yeah. And then there was another person playing Scriabin, all the 24 preludes. So that was a fantastic program, just as someone who was an observer. So people were allowed in to see people competing. And that was such a joyful experience.
I must touch the piano again. My wife keeps telling me to play because she enjoys listening, even if it's as simple as Fürlies. But definitely a motivation to go back and have a go at the piano.
Yeah.
But apart from that, you also enjoy opera, ballet. Any suggestions for someone who's not as familiar? I know Zurich has a lot of ballets.
So I was kind of, raised with the Vaganova school and the school of Bolshoi. Very different theaters because, for example, same movements in the same ballet, you need to perform differently in Bolshoi because the stage is so big.
Okay.
So, for example, the jump, if you jump like in Moscow, in St. Petersburg, or in London, you will land somewhere in a public. And artists need to master the difference and understand this architecture of dance, even if they perform classical movements of, I don't know, La Belle au Bois Dormant, so Dornröschen, or Swan Lakes, or whatever you take. I must admit, one of my favorite ballets of all the time is actually La Dame of Camélia, which was not composed as a ballet, but which was done with the music of Chopin.
Ah, interesting.
And one of my favorite pieces of music is Chopin's Concerto No. 2, Piano Concerto No. 2. I think he wrote only 2 piano concerti.
Okay. Yeah.
And this music is just aerial. It's something which touches every single nerve in my body. And I just think when I die at some point in time, I don't want any service, but I want the second part of Chopin's Concerto No. 2 being played.
I must go listen to it. I might have heard it before, but I must go listen to it again and see which piece you're referring to. But incredible. Yeah, I saw a ballet in Zurich a few years ago, but I felt like I didn't understand enough about the art to appreciate it. Although I thought it was quite interesting because it was a more modern take. I forget the name now, but...
Well, Stuttgart was famous because Kranko was a choreographer there. And Stuttgart did an amazing Eugenio Onegin ballet, not opera, which has never been composed as a ballet. So it was a compilation of Tchaikovsky music and fantastic, really, performance. One of my favorite ballets as well. Though Tchaikovsky, of course, composed the opera, which is one of my favorite operas. And one of my favorite is actually when Chvorostovsky sings Onegin. Obviously, Chvorostovsky died tragically quite young. He was ill. And I think Ferry, the Italian soprano, sings Tatiana. So this is one of the recordings which I absolutely love.
Wow. Lots of musical tips today, although that is not exactly what we're going to talk about for this entire episode, listeners. Yeah. But I hope you also gained some new knowledge on music and classical music appreciation, opera and ballet. But we're actually here to talk about AI because you are an expert in AI literacy. And to get there, I guess what's also very incredible and why I'm excited for this episode is also your background. I mean, you speak 6 languages, trained linguist and trained clinical psychologist. And I mean, tell me a bit about your early career before we get to the AI chapter, because you have gone through a lot of different experiences and you've developed so many diverse skill sets as well.
So I must admit that my early career was not planned. I was born in Moscow. I jumped 2 grades in school. And at the age of 16, I was already at the university. It was a dream of my life.
Wow.
To actually get to the Lomonosov University. I did not know more at what was the main university of the former Soviet Union. And I absolutely loved books. So my entire life, I loved books. My school was, strangely enough, specialized in physics and in French, which is a very weird combination. But I was very fluent in French without having ever visited France. And I could recite from French poetry and from some novels by heart without ever having talked to a real French person. Interesting experience. And in terms of ballet, for example, I think it was 1980 when Tesmar and Denard, 2 étoiles principal dancers of Opéra Garnier, were visiting Moscow, dancing Giselle. And I still remember this performance. Yeah, so this is kind of interesting that so many Russian ballet dancers were excelling in this piece. And until now, I remember those 2 French étoiles dancing this ballet, which is one of the most beloved ballets in the history of classical dance. So I was capable to pass very difficult exams to join the university, and I thought really I will be a professor. And I was interested in linguistics. I was interested in human arts. And I started with the grandson of Leo Tolstoy.
Oh, wow.
And he took me immediately because he believed I was curious and I was asking interesting questions about structure. So that what he said, it was kind of... I did not understand it back then about myself, that I was really thinking in structures and not necessarily in some random things. I loved it. And of course, computational linguistics was a big part of it, but it was before GPUs, before big data. There's a very famous joke about AI translations before Google Translate and all of that.
Okay.
And it goes like, this is true that in the 80s and in the early 90s, we were really using a Bible for translation.
Oh, wow.
Why? Because Bible exists in all the languages and it's very standardized text. So now, by the way, people training machines are using a lot Harry Potter and the Games of Thrones. So not Bible. Bible is out of fashion with translators.
I remember the early examples when they were still doing machine learning and text generation. They were trying to generate fan fiction for Harry Potter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So back then it was Bible, and there is one verse when it goes so English, Russian, and it was like, the flesh is weak and the spirit is strong. And the translation which came out was like meat is rotten and vodka is excellent. Oh. And it's one of the most famous jokes about the badness of machine translation. So many things which are possible today were not possible back then. I learned Croatian and Serb at the university just to work because I had to pay for my studies. And frankly, so 1989, 1990, 91, it was very difficult in the former Soviet Union, including Moscow. And I was working on the construction sites because obviously a lot of companies from the former Yugoslavia were building in Moscow. And I was translating. So I really learned by heart technology dictionary. And I was translating first, slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 months after I started translating, I was translating simultaneously.
Wow.
Making tons of money back then. So $1,000 US a week was very, very good.
Incredible.
Exactly. I negotiated the salary myself because otherwise they would have paid me probably $20 and that was it. But they did not have a choice because there were only 2 people capable to do this technical translation. And this is how I paid my way to study. But I was convinced I had to actually exit the country because it was simply difficult. It was even dangerous. There were shootings on the street because some groups were killing each other and whatever. And I was lucky enough to get a visa for Germany. So I left to Germany. So my first language was French. But French people did not provide for me a visa.
Okay.
But Germans, they did. And I went to Germany. And within 2 weeks, I was capable to find a job at the Deutsche Welle, which is like Radio Liberty or like BBC for foreign countries. So I started first translating for Deutsche Welle. And then actually I said once to chief editor of, so I was working for Russian edition and for Yugoslavian edition. I said, frankly, what I translate is just so dull and boring. Yeah. I would suggest I write for you. And they agreed. And at some point in time, I even had my own program.
Oh, wow.
And I enjoyed it very much. And then I started writing my PhD in linguistics, and I joined another faculty of psychology, got specialized in clinical psychology, and did tons of research on aphasia, which is a condition when the brain loses the capacity to replicate the language. So I've never practiced in hospitals, but I was doing some of research with patients and with doctors. And of course, now with big data, you can build wonderful models to predict the condition and what is going on in the brain after a stroke or an injury. Back then, there were some signs, some signals to look into to say, okay, so this is what is going on. Because if you break a leg, obviously you can do X-ray, you can see what is going on with the brain. It's still very difficult. And this is why I'm very cautious to kind of say, AI will do this and this and that. We still need to learn so much about how the brain works.
No, incredible.
And to reverse engineer a brain, I think it will still take years. And one of the most stupid books ever written is by Ray Kurzweil, How to Create a Mind, a book which I think was written in 2011 or 12.
One of the most stupid books.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it goes into all the details of the neurocortex, describing how actually AI models replicate what is going on in the structures of human brain, completely bypassing the fact that this is not just about the mechanics. So this is this area and this is this area, but bypassing the chemistry of hormones. Which contribute as much to intelligence and how the brain works as, let's say, the areas of brain. And I think that this is one of the issues with current AIs and AI makers. Those might be sophisticated, fantastic engineers, but they have never read one single book about other subjects. Yeah. And I think that AI as a very vast discipline must be interdisciplinary first and, let's say, about mechanics of models second. And you might be able to spot so much from adjacencies rather than just being in the realm of how do I build mathematically an artificial neural network.
Yeah.
At the same time, what I dislike a lot about current AI discussions is that people who call themselves philosophers and ethicists don't bother to look into the math. And then there are outrageous claims about AI capabilities, which are simply not true. And if something is not mirrored in mathematics, in my eyes, how should it appear? It will not descend from Mars upon us.
That's true.
So I have my own podcast. I try to explain AI, but I try to talk about ethics and philosophy and governance. And sometimes I invite people who are not in AI, but they are kind of, playing with AI tools. And I'm simply curious, what do they see? I'm curious in human experiences. But I'm really shying away from what I call AI wannabes who claim they know it all and this is how it will change the world. But I'm just then, please exercise the discipline of simply learning first and looking into the fundamentals.
Yep.
So you are a civil engineer by training and you know so much about water and what it does to structures.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you don't understand the basics of the soil composition and how the aerial somewhere is being built, whether you have a lot of stone or whether you have a lot of sand or whatsoever, how would you be capable to understand what water will do in this aerial? And we have right now tons of discussions about AI on the highest level of economics, industrial policy, social policy, society altogether, and education. And those fundamentals are being disregarded. And I'm kind of, fighting this mediocrity of commitment to first pause, study, understand, ask questions, and then formulate an opinion. I think that opinions should be informed. And we are currently suffering from uninformed opinions when it comes to technology.
It's music to my ears hearing it, and there's so many thoughts there that popped up as I was just listening to you about that. I mean, the first thing that came to mind already listening to this is, complexity theory. We've sort of studied complexity, what it means. I mean, at its most basic level, the fact that many different seemingly simple parts converge and there's an emergent phenomena.
Yeah.
And it feels like because we're just trying to disassemble things like the brain or, like society and explain it from cause and effect perspectives, we miss the bigger picture that there's actually a lot more moving parts and often these phenomena emerge because of that interaction. So, I mean, interaction, going deeper into that is already something that I can totally agree with and totally understand, because in my own work, and you described the whole civil engineering analogy, which I thought was a brilliant way of putting it. Yeah, you have to really look at all the different aspects, and it's not just a water engineer that's going to solve your problems. You may not be the expert, but if you can connect the dots, I think that brings a lot of, value in making sure that you don't stay siloed.
Yeah.
Which is really the second point that popped up. I think our society has become far too siloed, and that has resulted in people not wanting to venture into other disciplines or even daring to venture for fear of being, ridiculed for their lack of knowledge there. I think someone needs to at least be willing to understand someone else's topic, so such as the ethicist understanding the mathematics, so that they can then seek the depth from someone who knows it. And I think with that siloed structure of society, we are running into potentially a huge trap.
Yeah, I think there's a merit to try to model pieces and bits of the whole thing, and every model is a simplification. So you kind of, need to say, this is my major theme. If we are kind of, going back to music, this is my leitmotif, and this is something else, and this is like the background. And those instruments will play the major role, and those are secondary sounds. And the same is with modeling the behavior of networks. So, of course, we can think about the whole world as, let's say, an orchestra of networks. We need to be capable to isolate one network from another. But at the same time, really agree that it's not just this piece. There are more pieces. Simplification here is an art. So Leonardo da Vinci said that simplifying, so this is actually the simplicity. This is what true art is about. I agree. It's difficult. You need to possess huge level of sophistication in mastering something to be capable to simplify. I'm not claiming I'm capable, but I'm trying. And I think this deep respect towards someone else's opinion, this is what we should celebrate. What I dislike a lot is when people without any knowledge are writing invoices and trying to make money based on ignorance of their clients.
Yeah.
And this is something which is important because, for example, the business of consultancies, and I've been at McKinsey over 20 years ago. I know how consultancies work and how people who don't know anything about whatsoever lead with more or less Socratian dialogue to investigate what is the problem. Claiming a sophisticated skill set, which, by the way, on the side of a client is quite often ridiculous. And I fired so many McKinseys and BCGs in the life of being an executive because I said, I don't need soul searching, and I'm not here as your client to educate you about the basics of my business. But I know what you can do, and I will give you a very kind of clear task on what I expect. And then you can get a fantastic collaboration from clients. So now, out of sudden, every single consultancy is specialized in AI.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah.
Quite extensively.
And then I applaud Financial Times for putting this on the front page. KPMG is pulling out a study on Gen AI, because apparently in this study, there were examples which were hallucinated by AI. And I'm sorry, I would be merciless in the environments like this. I would never work with this company again if I see this, because it's simply deeply dishonest, and it means an utter disrespect towards a client who is paying your bills.
Yeah.
I think we are out of a space of easy money. We need to earn our ability to advise people, to advise companies. And I think this respect, I'm not saying don't use AI at all, but if you use AI, for example, the basic is to control, because all AIs hallucinate.
Yeah.
And you can't take hallucinations out of deep learning and of transformers, which is one of the varieties of deep learning models, artificial neural networks. We need different architectures to reduce and eliminate hallucinations. So there are some tricks how you might reduce, because you might say, okay, so this is just my domain of knowledge, ontology. So this is data ontology, for example, on urban planning.
Yeah.
And this model, which was trained on myriads of data from urban planners, really understands the domain. And then there are some checks how human in the loop controls whether AI hallucinates or not. But those big models, foundational models, they will always hallucinate. They will never tell you, I do not have information. They will imagine. Well, imagination is a wrong word here. They will, let's say, produce.
Yep.
Not imagine, but produce. And this is another thing. How do we speak about one phenomenon versus another? Obviously, we have never been born with a relationship to machines. So we have humans, we might have animals as our companions, and then as animals working for us, or which we use, for example, for food, but not machines. So we use the same language we were used to use towards animals and humans for machines. And then we forget that this is a very different phenomenon. And of course, we give machines human names because this is what we are used to do.
It's in our culture, yeah.
It's in our culture. And what I dislike about today is that AI, because it is powerful and it mimics so well, it's being elevated into the status of religion with different churches, like OpenAI is a church and DeepMind is another church, and Demis Hassabis is one pope and Sam Altman is another pope. Very different popes, by the way, but still they are popes, and then there's a cult. And if you say, look, AI might not be that powerful, it doesn't mean it might not damage us or be beneficial, then you are immediately into heresy. And Gary Marcus writes, but the math here, it does not master distribution shift. So it means it will always make mistakes and we need to do this and that. And he's a heretic. And Jürgen Schmidhuber, who is one of the best deep learners on the planet, what he's currently carrying most is that he does not have the awards like other guys. I don't understand why he does not have a Turing Prize. His merit is there too, but who decides on this? So instead of direct the energy towards certain things, he is all over social media saying it's not Jan LeCun who invented this, but it was Jürgen Schmidhuber in 1990 and not in 2013.
Yeah.
I'm asking myself whether the energy is spent on, let's say, my own ambition, and nothing wrong is with ambition, but just, celebrating this or complaining about it. And frankly, it's not about scientific honesty. People don't perceive it as about scientific honesty. So there's this verb Schmidhuber thinks when they ridicule him because they have never read his papers, for example. But because he is claiming now that he is the inventor of all the things, which is wrong. He's not saying that, but he's like pointing out that certain things which are being attached to a name might not be originated from that name. So I'm really wondering where people spend their time. And it's, of course, up to them to decide on how they spend their time. But I think there's so many problems worldwide we need to solve, including in AI. Is it not a waste of time?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very stark reality check here.
Yeah.
Because, going on to LinkedIn now, all the AI slop and repeated AI slop that I see, it's just deafening. And, some of it worries you because sometimes it's so convincingly written, probably generated by an AI, that it makes you think, hang on, am I missing out on something? And others, it's like, thank you for wasting this 2 seconds of my life that I have to scroll past. And yeah, I guess what's really missing is that basic understanding of what is actually going on, how AI actually works, how we should be using it, and, what's even available. And the whole background of it. And that is really what you've made your mission to shed light on and to really give people the power to understand better themselves.
Which is, by the way, a difficult mission because you need to cut through an ocean of noise with your own means. But I am just saying I put my mouth where my money is and I fund it. It's not like I'm waiting for a grant because I think waiting is not an option. And organically building some pieces of content are brilliant, some less so, but it's really paying into the mission to increase understanding and knowledge of AI with the general population. So I'm really willing to address parents and AI muggles instead of AI wizards. Sometimes I bring real AI wizards on my podcast, on my interviews. Sometimes I talk to writers because they portray AI and robots in their science fiction. I will be having one of the most celebrated sci-fi authors from Australia very soon on my podcast.
Incredible.
Who is republishing one of his novels called Retrograde. I liked it very much because it's really a very scientific. So yes, it's a sci-fi novel, but you might imagine that the science is correct there on how to do experiments in a space or on a planet. So there's the scientific rule to what he is describing. And then, of course, there's a certain plot and AI plays a role there. And this is why I'm interested in talking to him. So I am bringing sometimes people who are trying to enhance their skill set with the help of AI. But I'm always asking, so is it enhancing? Is it another tool? Or did you learn something completely novel? What I'm hearing quite often, protein folding. So this is really a novelty based on some existing things. But if this is just like repackaging, yes, it's innovation enough. But did it give me something unseen, unheard of? Is it unheard of because I don't know? I'm too, let's say, narrowed in my domain. This is possible.
It's very possible, yeah.
Or is it really a novel thing for humanity? And so far, I haven't discovered one single thing which was completely new and beneficial coming from AI. A
colleague of mine made this joke, but it's so true when you think about it. If we had ChatGPT like a few thousand years ago in the Stone Age, we would still be in the Stone Age because at the end of the day, it's nothing but a giant regression model, if you think about it. And so everything is within that space of the knowledge that it has. So if you want to go beyond that, you still need the human element and you actually need to put in the work as the human thinkers to innovate.
And by the way, this is very deep thought about staying in the Stone Age, if there was such a thing as ChatGPT back then. Because there's another thing which AI, Gen AI produces, and this is synthetic data. So there are some not Gen AI type of models using synthetic data, and those data is useful because there's no access to real world data. However, if the majority of new data is being produced by the machines, you change the reality and the world because you emphasize existing mistakes, existing biases, existing inconsistencies by increasing the volume. And this is how today this mathematics of those large models work.
Yeah.
So I fundamentally think that in order to make AI beneficial and simply better, we need more intelligence in AI. And it will not come from continuing this path of further developing statistical processing machines. So token processing.
Yep.
Token is an element. It's not even a word or let's say a line of music. Token might be a piece of a word. Yeah.
Few syllables.
Or sound, right? For the machine, it does not understand. So it kind of, repackages it processes it according to certain mechanisms. And I think we need understanding, which can only be done when there is a causality embedded. Causality did not come to be in biological brains immediately. It was a mechanism which was developed with evolution. Of course, there was a necessity to develop causality for organisms to simply get food. Yeah. It's interesting that stomach is the first organ which an embryo starts displaying. An embryo might be an embryo of a frog or an embryo of a human being, but this gastrula is the very first organ in both. So you kind of, understand what is important for life. And this is food, nourishment. So we need to get to more and more sophistication in AI. And this is why I'm always kind of, that this is my theory and I might be wrong, but I'm like, embed causality, embed world model. So Jan LeCun is doing this. Fei-Fei Li is looking how to do it. I am a huge fan. I do not know whether that will be enough and whether learning, for example, from multimodal things and learning a lot from observing and doing video, whether this is enough. But it's a path and it's not simply scaling the existing flawed architectures. Then get to mathematics, which might describe the theory of mind. If someone is listening to this and they know about those mathematics, I do not know. Please instruct me, reach out to me. I'm really, I don't care if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, we are not even in the neighborhood to understand how it works.
Yeah, really three aspects that we need for AIs to be, I guess, what we could call truly intelligent, which
exactly
you've highlighted. So the cause and effect reasoning, understanding the consequences of the output, then the world modeling. And, you mentioned you think in structures. I recently discovered that I actually like to think in structures and worlds as well. And then finally, the theory of mind, which is, something that also goes a bit past my head when I think about it. But this is one of 4 pillars that you wrote in a white paper that you published on responsible AI. And so I guess taking it from the top to give our listeners a very good overview, I guess let's begin with, and we will revisit this shortly, but let's begin with, I guess, some terminology. I mean, we hear the word literacy a lot. But in AI, we especially have to distinguish between AI literacy and AI fluency, because if we understand the difference between those two words, we start to see, what there is more of out there and what is missing.
Yeah.
So perhaps, what is the difference between these two terms?
I started building an AI literacy-focused business 2 years ago. And the distinction between fluency and literacy was not clear to me at all. But then I started doing a global study on AI literacy. And for me, literacy was really like fundamentals, learn about fundamentals, understand the things, probably not to the same extent as an AI scientist, but the fundamentals to be capable to say, okay, so this is what I should do for my small business. Here's a license I can really buy and then it will be enough. Or I might need here to invest into building my own model, or I need to team up with my competitors because we need, for example, a bigger data set. And then this data set might not be what we are competing on. So our products and services would be derived from the data set. But then if we join forces, then everyone benefits. So, but you need a kind of, understanding first. And then you start exercising judgment to what about tools, what about the concepts.
Yeah.
And then I'm starting discovering that a lot of people in academia, in industry, they're all about AI fluency. And AI fluency is you use the tool.
Yeah.
You learn how to prompt. But it's not enough for my take right now, because we need to understand limitation to form expectations.
Yeah.
And this is a path which is considered to be boring or not actually wanted, because actually understanding gives you power.
Very true.
When you understand something or you have some understanding of something, you start questioning things. And questioning is what consultancies and AI vendors don't like. You are consulting cities and you might love conversations and questioning. And you might educate first your clients about why you are suggesting one or another thing. In AI, right now, money is being made in dust and in the night when certain things are not truly seen. Because then you can price in and then claim the power and show something which appears to be fluent and understanding, but frankly is about something completely different. And by the way, when I'm speaking about lack of intelligence in AI, I am not speaking about lack of usefulness. Those tools might be fantastically useful.
Yeah.
But I think that fundamental understanding of how they work will open your eyes to demand more from them and use them with better judgment. Actually, there is not a lack of tools right now, but there's a lack of sophisticated governance. And governance is about human agency. How do you apply agency in the age of AI? Governance is not necessarily about compliance. Compliance is, of course, regulatory compliance, what we must do, because otherwise we violate the law. By the way, I'm not saying that the law is smart. Yeah. But we must kind of, comply and follow the rules. Rules might not be smart.
Yeah.
But governance is how do I exercise my decision? What do I do first? What do I do second? Who can touch X, Y, Z? Who I'm open up to? What do I control? Not because of the law, but because it will deliver better outcomes for my situation, for my context, for my business. It's always contextual. And it is not about AI per se. It's about a situation in a business. What do I need to solve for?
And how does it apply to the whole business?
Exactly.
So, I guess to fully understand the difference, a literacy topic would be what happens to your data when you upload it or you use it to train the model. So, even just a chatbot, do you know where your data is going, what's being handled, or how it's using the data?
And what data is
and what
altogether.
Data is generally, yeah. Or, I guess also what is the likelihood of the AI going to hallucinate? Or where is it going to hallucinate specifically and why it's doing that? That would be the literacy question. And then the fluency would be how do you manage that? How do you detect it and use it and avoid that happening?
Yeah. So literacy comes first. Fluency comes second. So both are important. But if you just invest into fluency, actually what you increase is mediocrity and stupidity. And I wish for leaders across communities, industries, companies, NGOs, across governments to actually be willing, have appetite for understanding first. This is what our age is kind of deprived of, this appetite for understanding, because things seem so, let's say, like fast food. But we know all, if we just eat fast food, what happens to the body. And mental discipline to wait and to pause and to think first. This is what we lack in so many domains of society. And then, of course, it's not about AI. It's just about social networks. 40 years ago, you needed to write your opinion on the wall of a toilet. Now, the wall of a toilet is your social network. So everyone writes. And now even more people write, because even if they lack the language for the wall of the toilet, now they use Gen AI. And this is how we pollute the environment. I mean, real pollution of the environment, because all of this is a burden on society in terms of what do you actually put into your data centers in terms of data. But it's in the nature of humans. So we are not quite smart animals. We are not very savvy in how we play with the biggest resource what we have, which is actually our brain.
Yeah. And it really is a call for us to go back to look at ourselves and
Exactly.
to really, I guess understand, well, how can we, grow ourselves, our cognitive abilities, which is something that is now becoming even more alarming because we've had the famous publication from MIT, Your Brain on ChatGPT, about a year and a bit ago. And more recently, Nature News actually featured another confirmation of, I guess the word they use is cognitive offloading onto an AI. And that reliance on Gen AI will degrade our own abilities in time.
Yeah. And, I'm just really wondering what would be the Ozempic for brains.
Yeah.
Because the analogy with food, we need food. Yeah. And we need nourishment.
Yeah.
And it's not just about calories, but what type of nourishment do we give our bodies? And sometimes, of course, there are diseases and conditions where, and the same is with the cognition. Be disciplined about cognition. This is tremendously important. And schools are not even in a neighborhood. And what schools are saying, and a lot of, people who care about the threat, is calling Gen AI degenerative AI. No one has asked for. Well, it will not disappear.
No.
The thing is, how do you educate people, which is a very, very difficult path? How do you come through the noise? How do you excite people? And who do you align with? Because frankly, if you have people who are like-minded in this sense, let's join forces.
Yeah.
And how do you identify like-minded people? So that's kind of, where I am trying to find my crowd, which is not always easy.
Very true.
Yeah.
And not many are willing to take that step to question what they're getting from the AI because it's too shiny an object. It's too much fun. It's giving them the solutions quicker. And yeah, it's unfortunate when you see that.
Well, it's not solutions it's giving, it's distraction.
Yeah. More appropriate word.
Yeah. So it generates stuff.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it gives you solutions. And frankly, when I listen to it put danger on this and this profession, I would say it's not dangerous at all if you really are a professional.
Yep.
If you really understand what you are doing, then you will not be eliminated and you will always find your crowd and your clients. But if you just were surfing or passing by, I think ultimately in the world with AI, we would require to reduce the amount of mediocrity. And unfortunately, the whole bell curve is about emphasizing the concept of mediocrity. Because, of course, one, for example, language and translation. So if you are really sophisticated with language and you understand how to write, and then now you have AI, it might save you certain time or it might give you new quotes or whatever, and you're far right, you are enjoying. If you don't speak a language properly and you need to write a letter to your school board or whatever, and you don't know how to write in Italian, for example, or in Spanish, then of course it will generate a letter which will be better than what you can write because you do not speak proficiently in this language. But the music is really happening in this median. And what is going right now on is that the media is shifting to the left and not to the right. And this is what I love when people are saying we need to raise our bar on expectations towards our species, to humans.
Yeah.
And this is what should be celebrated in schools. And we do not have programs which would celebrate trials and errors, rising above, courage to admit, I do not know. What we are testing for is knowledge which is even ridiculous in those days. We do not find new ways to educate about fundamentals in mathematics, in writing. I think that applied mathematics and creative writing should be compulsory for all the ages and for all the subjects.
Indeed. Now we're seeing a lot more that people are realizing how powerful writing is, not as a communication tool, but as a thinking tool.
Yeah.
One of the books that has already existed for a long time. William Sinzer wrote on writing well or writing to learn. I mean, it is a thinking tool. And I think we need to make sure we as humans don't lose that ability, especially critical thinking. You mentioned the example just now. If someone understands a particular discipline or language, they can generate text that may be better than what they could write maybe in the same span of time. Surely we can't write a letter in like 2 seconds. But without the ability to then critique that result, it's just going to be, I don't know, for me, it's scary to rely on something that comes out that I don't understand.
Yeah.
And I think we need to be able to reclaim that agency, that power, or that stance.
Absolutely. And actually celebrate it and really congratulate children who are willing to spend time in, for example, writing their own Romeo and Juliet or Cinderella, right? Yeah. Those eternal stories, because, even if we know the motif and what will happen at the end, there might be some little details which will make this Cinderella or this Romeo and Juliet a very new piece, right?
Indeed.
And this is why we return to the same sujets in the course of the history of human beings, right? And I think that this old idea about Renaissance stuff of a person and fusing STEMs and humanities, that should be at the heart of all educational reforms. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing that. And AI is a part of it. For example, what alpha schools are doing in the United States, I'm a huge fan. So teaching with personal apps, and personal apps are powered by AI. Trying to understand what is the issue with this pupil. Is it lack of understanding of chemistry, or is it because chemistry are word problems plus mathematics, and the person is not mastering basic maths. So, of course, the person will fail in chemistry. And then maybe we just forget about chemistry now and train the person for 2 weeks in fractions. And then we return back to chemistry, and all of a sudden, this is a perfect chemistry student. So this is why we need personalized education, and this is how we can deploy AI as an infrastructure. I'm not saying that AI in education equals licenses for ChatGPT for every single person on the planet. Yeah.
No, certainly not.
There are courses on nutrition. There should be courses on what constitutes cognitive development for everyone. And I am curious whether there will be a willingness to go into this path, because I do not see right now like economic necessity for that. What are the models when economy will hurt? Because we do valuation of companies differently. And when we see that this cognitive, let's say, capital.
Yep.
So right now we are talking about human capital, but maybe at some point in time we need to consider to add another category, which is the cognitive capital.
Interesting, yeah.
And what is this cognition? How do we describe it, if not measure it? So I wish there were more focus on this. And in the meantime, how do we make money with all of that? Because, frankly, this is tremendously difficult. And I fund my literacy work because simply I go into companies and do AI implementations because I know how, right?
Yeah, no, very true. And I mean, the cognitive capital is actually quite an interesting take, because we're seeing this on an unfortunately different level, which is more token allowance. I'm reading articles about, job interviewees saying they should now ask for how many tokens they're allowed to spend. And you're seeing all these nightmare stories of people burning through 500,000 on Claude tokens without any, with the complete disregard that also costs money. When in fact, a cognitive ability, the human's own ability would have been more than sufficient to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So I guess it could be the wrong metrics we're measuring against. But of course, when I think of, and we've had this discussion in previous episodes too, the way our society is structured is for that, post-industrialization economy where you have an education, you learn a skill, you specialized, hence the silos, and then you work, in a corporate business. We're seeing that shift in society towards more solopreneurship, entrepreneurship, people doing multiple things that they like doing. A musician could also be running, an education online course thing, as well as, surfing professionally. So what systemic change do we actually need in our education system, or radical shift? You mentioned personalization, which AI, I think, can really help. But do we need a complete overhaul of the school system? Like, do we just need to get rid of schools and work in smaller groups?
I think we need an overhaul of schools, not to abolish them, but to change the programs. I'm not a huge proponent of mix up all the ages and all the degrees of intellect, and, diversity and inclusion is all good, but still we need to train. Brain, well, I don't know whether someone can really medically say it's a muscle, but you need to train brain. So basic numerical skills, mathematics, creative writing, and problem solving. So we need new ways to teach people to solve problems. And we need to be more open about certain domains of knowledge, like history. It's not just about facts, but it's about who writes the history. And, Eastern Europe right now. So I'm from the former Soviet Union. History has been rewritten on multiple occasions. History of the Second World War. Yeah, there are some schools of thought which are just dominant, but they are fantastic books on that Stalin has as much guilt in starting the Second World War as Hitler. But this is not a dominant thought, even in Western society. And if you start digging deeper why, you understand why, yeah? But I think that these questions and the ability to connect the dots to say, you need first certain fundamentals to be capable to connect. But then things in networks, things in ecosystems, and system thinking in relationships. What does it mean to think in a relationship? How do you model a relationship? And so those skill sets are tremendously important. And using technology as well, using modeling, in trying out, can I build a digital twin of my classroom? And if I try one or another experiment first digitally, what will happen? I don't have all the answers, but I think that we don't spend too much time on those questions. And what I dislike a lot is that our elected politicians don't bother to look into things which are really important. For example, the demographic decline. I don't know about Australia, so you spent so many years there. You were raised in Singapore. Singapore is actually a very progressive society when it comes to future skills, right?
Yeah.
So I was talking with the person in the government who implements AI fluency and AI literacy for Singapore. This is, to my eyes, the best program in the world.
Interesting.
So, and frankly, it doesn't cost that much if you think about the impact and how they go around it. And please, I don't want to hear that Singapore is so small and this is why everything is easy. Then build clusters and start somewhere if you are in the UK or in Germany. But in both countries, they prefer to finger point and promise, and all the facts are not in presence but in future time, which means they don't have a clue about what is going on. So I think we require to start asking difficult questions. What happens with the demographic decline? What does it mean for us in terms of GDP and future GDP progression? How do we need to automate and how do we need to teach people about automation? It's not just programming, it's change management for the whole society. How do we truly think about automation and healthcare? So what does it mean for us to get talent into the country? Where do we lack skills? Can people from Asia contribute to X, Y, Z? How can we cooperate and what are the models of excellence in collaboration and cooperation? And I'm sure if there's a will, then experts and great people will be found.
Indeed,
to contribute. Yeah.
And where there's a will from the government to show that care for the society. You mentioned Singapore. I mean, if people try to ascribe to the small argument, I recently read that China is also taking steps towards overhauling what degrees would they offer and what they should just drop in favor of new kinds of skill sets or new kinds of university education. Because, there's always this big, catastrophic tale of AI taking all the jobs. I mean, it's easy to say it in a simple sentence, but I think if you look at what China's also trying to do, it's saying, well, okay, let's treat this as a more nuanced problem. Let's see what do we need to, change, whether it's, I'm just thinking simultaneous translation might be the most, the one in danger, although there's always the nuance there. But looking at what you can learn, what is going to be replaced, improving that system, that's a simple first step, but it requires a higher level action.
Yeah. And by the way, when you are mentioning translation, I'm bringing a podcast episode out in a couple of weeks with a CEO of one of the largest language companies in the world. So they are in the business of translation. And awesome. Not only is AI replacing humans, they're hiring more humans.
That is fascinating.
And we're talking about language. We're not talking about, so the Google Translate and whatever. But the domain knowledge is so important. And it's not just we're teaching the machines and at some point in time we are not needed any longer. Still the nuances. So the domain is so vast. It's just a very different type of work in this company comparing to 50 years ago when, there's an article in the press or there is a conference and then you go differently to solve the problem of one part of a room is not understanding another part of a room. So, and today I was recording a podcast with someone from Australia and she's a communication specialist, and a thought occurred to me during the podcast. I would really, force people to learn foreign languages in the age of Google Translate and AI. Why? Because it hones your brains. And how? So I'm just noticing, because I'm synclingual, there's always this issue of being misunderstood.
Yep.
And, sometimes those are cultural circle, even within one language domain, let's say English, English in Australia, English in Singapore, English in South Africa, English in London,
Very
in the
true.
highest society, all British aristocracy, very different domains, right? Still, how do you express yourself when you have a limited amount of time? You need to nail your thinking.
Yeah, to the
and
point.
It's a cognitive, let's say, exercise. What type of words are you using? So same with the French or Italian. So how do you really get this message out? Of course, first you need to have something to say. If not, it's really better to be silent. Yeah. I think we need to practice this saying that silence is gold.
Yeah, that's true.
I wish it was more prevalent in on LinkedIn and stuff. Don't post every day. So I think algorithms should not have preference for those posting several times a day, every day, but actually posting real stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah? So, we just need to rethink how we communicate, and this precision in communication might be, let's say, formed even further if we speak foreign languages.
But even just training the cognitive aspects of our brain.
Yeah.
Just simple language switching between two languages. You have to be alert for that.
Yeah.
And it brings wonders.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you have this brain fog, which is very, very well and true nowadays, especially with social media. Just look at the social media age and how many issues we've had with that, of doom scrolling and all these kinds of trends. So, I guess little things people can do to exercise the brain, even just doing mental maths.
Yes.
I still enjoy adding or multiplying 2-3 digit numbers in my head, trying to imagine how to do it manually on a surreal or brain-based piece of paper.
Yeah.
So,
and that's the point. So unfortunately, this is like with, let's say, stretching or doing resistance training in a gym, right? With brains, you can't simply leapfrog. You might have some drink or a pill, right? But still you need to exercise, you need to train. So, and this is, AI should not be a crouch. It should enhance and help. But it comes with the work. And I think we need to celebrate work.
I think we do.
Yeah.
But it's so enlightening and also just so fresh to hear your thoughts on it and to really, just confirm for myself all the perceptions I have of what I read online, and knowing that I'm at least confident that I'm on a good path in my use with AI and how I'm incorporating elements of it into my daily work as well.
Well, but that's wonderful. And I think that investing time into deep conversations, this is marvelous. And this is, by the way, why business models like Substack exist and Patreon, and not just, let's say, LinkedIn, which is currently really a public toilet.
So true. I feel like it's become worse over just a single year.
We still depend on it because, frankly, if I need to reach out to, and not everyone is responding when I'm reaching out, I need to be very humble about this. But if I want to reach out to an author in Australia and being very humbled and saying, I loved your book, this is why, would you come on my podcast? I'm still doing this through LinkedIn. I can't do it through many other platforms.
That's very true. Unfortunately, some of these have to be used for that benefit. But as long as we are, I guess, aware, that awareness, I think, is perhaps the most important skill to hone.
Absolutely.
Being, able to interpret our surroundings.
Yeah.
We've kind of covered the 4 main pillars that you've written in your white paper, and we'll definitely put a link to this in the show notes. Listeners, I can highly recommend reading this paper because it's A, so simply written, but B, it just puts a good structure into understanding where you should think, in which directions when you're trying to use AI or decide whether AI is to be used for you. I mean, we covered, improving and changing the current AI architecture. You talked about the cause-effect reasoning, the world modeling, the theory of mind. And I found this very fascinating because much earlier you mentioned the word imagination being the wrong word. And that's because you make a point that AI cannot really imagine, but it needs to. Because, we humans are world builders. We think of what-if scenarios, and that helps us in our decision-making.
And by the way, we would be now crucified by so many AI wannabes because AlphaFold, Nobel Prize, yes. At the same time, there is another model for material science and material scientists. So you would rely to this as a civil engineer. They were really probing those new materials. And then they said it's all crap. Because either, for example, oxidation or other properties are not possible on our planet Earth. For AI, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have a world model. So kind of, baseline understanding the basic physics of this world, right? So it will, let's say, figure out all kind of materials. Or they will say it's not just that those are not possible on this planet, but it would be so expensive to synthesize something like this in a lab. We won't do it. And that's exactly, one model celebrating, another model, everyone is silent.
I guess that's because I feel when I'm listening to that, AlphaFold, protein folding, I mean, it's a combinatorics problem. And so, trying and in looking at all the possible combinations, it's not something we can sometimes, do completely, whereas an AI can do that because it's, I guess, interpolating within the solution space. Whereas, I guess, creating new materials, and the keyword here is new, that's where I think it starts falling short.
Well, I mean, people would argue it's the same. It's combinatoric as well. But just, I am not in chemistry and material science to fully understand what worked and what did not. But one thing was tremendously useful, immediately applicable in, for example, drug research and whatever, new molecular structures. Another thing, we can't really take it and apply because it's useless.
True.
And we should be talking about both and celebrating both. That's, for example, what we are forgetting when we are talking about experience and AI and all the data. You have, let's say, good outcomes in AI and then it models and learns. But we need to have all the outcomes because, for example, if you do scientific experiments and you say it did not work out, but I understand now why it did not work out. So this is as useful outcome as to say it did work out, I published, I have now a new range of applications, products, services, new
what
ways.
Works and what doesn't, which actually is your second pillar, which is that radical transparency. Where we need to also report our failures and not just our success stories.
And that's exactly, and I mean, there are ways even in big tech companies to assess models. And because so much money is being pushed into those companies, the companies don't want, let's say, issues to surface. And this is the whole story about firing so-called Google ethicists and ridiculing the paper about stochastic parrots. I read the paper. I was like, what is the issue? It's completely clear to anyone who studied neuroscience why those things are stochastic parrots. Now it's coming out from someone who is not in neuroscience, but in computer science. Fantastic. We have an overlap. But it was an issue because, pushing out releases, it's a different cycle. So when an economic cycle and, let's say, funding investment cycle is contradicting the real cycle of what is embedded into a technology, then we have an issue. And of course, so much of what we are discussing is opaque. So people don't want certain things to surface. And I'm like always, look, if you are discussing AI, think about, is there a mathematical conception to base the thing on? What are the economics of this thing? Yeah. And then, frankly, is it there enough interdisciplinarity to look from different angles and consider it? And then you will more or less assess what is going on. And then, of course, look into the IP portfolio, and patents are published. So they're registered. With some dedication and work, you will discover whether the claim is sufficient or not, and then exercise your judgment and have a discussion whether to fund, not to fund, how much, how quick. So right now, it's all based on fear to miss out. It's all based on artificial race. And this is more or less the situation of the tulip bubble in the Netherlands in the 17th century. Yeah, 17th century, yeah.
Oh, I've read about that story a while ago. But yes, I mean, very simple. That FOMO is perhaps the most, motivating thing. They don't want to lose out because everyone realizes it's a major disruption, like the smartphone or like, the printing press. So...
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, we have the other two pillars, which we've actually covered in quite a lot of detail, which is really that literacy is understanding and tool and not tool training. And then finally preserving the human abilities through the education system, through, I guess, being very clear that we need to, work on our own skills, our fundamental skills.
Absolutely. And I'm a huge fan of those educators who are looking, let's say, beyond their kernel. And for example, in the Middle East, so what I know about Abu Dhabi, they have, it's not a ministry, but it's like an institute for the early childhood education. And they are specialists in early childhood education and early childhood per se, contributing to the work of this institute. And for example, they are busying themselves with questions like what a park should look like from the perspective of a child.
Interesting.
And I wish we had some thinking like this going on in London and in Zurich and in Washington, D.C. and in Moscow and in Kiev, because I think this is about our future. And I'm not saying everything is fine and fantastic, but, I think we need to, if we want a certain future to be, we need to have a concept on what it might look like and what are the skills we would like to support. And saying, okay, so we are like pro-children because, who would say we are against children? No one, right?
Protecting the next generation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But what do you do about this, right? Concretely.
Yeah.
And if you can't fund the whole institute, but what is the space of this thing in your entire government? And if the answer is there is no space and we have our school system, then you have your answer. Nothing will come out of it if you are not putting some light on an issue. Then it's not important, but that means this is your choice.
Defining clear values and taking actions that align with those values.
In principle, it's that simple.
It reminds me also of a previous discussion I had on the show. Listeners, check out episode 58 with Juan Pablo Carvajal, where he talked about it not being the problem of AI alignment, but of human alignment.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And human alignment, this is one of the most complicated things on Earth. And this is why we have world literature. And this is, for example, I mentor leaders.
Yeah.
And I'm always recommending them. I can't force them, but I'm recommending them to read not only, let's say, some science papers from their field and some papers on, let's say, leadership literature and economics and whatever, environment, everything what is fancy today, politics, globalization, wars, etc.
Broad topics.
But sometimes novels, because, I can't meet like all those people. But if I read, like, I do not know, probably 40 novels a year, well, I read 40 novels a year. You don't need to read 40, but read 10.
Yeah.
Those are 10 stories about imaginary people, which might be based on real people. And those are new experiences even for you.
Very true. And you're engaging with it really at a very intimate level.
Absolutely. And why are certain, let's say, connotations and development of a story causing this or that emotion? If you're slightly reflective about this, and you might be very, very entertained. Yeah.
No, very, very true. And you're exercising your brain because
yes, absolutely.
you are forced to imagine.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, I mean, what's your vision for the next few years with AI Edutainment, which is the name of your company?
So frankly, I truly believe I would require 5 to 7 years really to put it really on the map. It won't be very an easy ride because obviously I don't think I will get support by, let's say, major consultancies or major brands. But I truly believe in what I call bottom-up leadership of communities, and I believe in the power of a single leader. And the leader might be, of course, let's say, CEO of a company like, I don't know, Siemens and Roche and GE and whatever, Google, Alphabet. But a leader might be a school director who will say, frankly, I care about what happens in my school and I want to educate my pupils about my students about AI, and I want to organize something with the local environment. There might be a university there might be startups there might be a big company there. So this leadership, don't kind of, confuse it with a business title and where you are in this food chain of, let's say, society, hierarchy. No one can prevent you from leading and putting out your voice. And then you need patience and you need people, for example, like you giving me space on your podcast, other people who I get on my podcast, and this ecosystem of things which are mushrooming.
Yep.
So get the thing into a movement, drop by drop, because there is a need. I see the need. Whether this need materializes in 2 years or in 4, the need is there.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, I think appealing to moms and dads because they want their children to thrive. They want themselves to thrive. Giving agency back to people. And agency is always, how am I spending my time? What do I want my child to learn? Do I want the child to scroll, or I might be looking into something different, So I just think this bottom-up leadership, emphasizing human agency, not shying away from addressing difficult problems I can't solve on my own, but I can help to identify and push into maybe a broader solutions. That will be my path. Nothing quick and easy, but absolutely necessary. And this conviction is why I'm doing this. I consider myself too old not to work on something which is that important. And if I see something which is similar, I would celebrate it, but I was really looking, and I have a daughter. So at some point in time, hopefully I will be grandma. I want my grandchildren to be in a better world with better opportunities.
Yeah, very, very incredible, and such a noble cause. And it's been so much fun diving into what you do and also your podcast. So AI Snacks with Romy and Roby.
Yeah.
Romy being your cat Romeo.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who hasn't come out of the office, but we have met Juliet. So yes, listeners, in case you're curious, she has 2 cats, Romy and Juliet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And they are hashtags now. So the real Romy and the real Julia. So I sometimes put their pictures out on Instagram, and obviously I illustrated them in a book. And frankly, this is my take on marketing. So when I show up and talk about tokens and data, people are bored. But if I hold this furry monster in my arms, then out of sudden people are interested because he's a furry monster and much more interesting than myself, let's say. So, and for this reason, I'm always like, if I need to kind of, make 5 ponytails to explain AI, I will appear with 5 ponytails. I don't care, right? But cats always sell.
The absurdity of it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
But he's my chief marketing officer. Absolutely. Chief meow officer. And I mean, frankly, we learn how important cats are. Just look what is happening with British politics. Larry is the constant in British politics. And the cat from number 10.
Yes, very, very recent.
Survived 6 prime ministers. So celebrate cats, use them to educate kids and just enjoy the absolutely right.
Fantastic. We'll definitely put a link to the show. Listeners, do check it out if you want to know more. There's so many topics that, we could cover on this show, and I have to get you on at some point for part 2. And maybe we'll wait for the world to implode a bit more as well, so we have some interesting topics to cover.
I think that's something which will happen, unfortunately.
And let's hope not. Let's try to be optimistic here. But Anastassia, it's been absolutely fascinating listening and learning from you about AI literacy, and also just, I guess, double checking what I sort of believe in the world of AI and how I've been approaching it myself. And it's given me a lot of confidence. But like I do with every guest, I'd love to ask you the key questions so that listeners can get to know even more about you.
Yeah.
And so I guess one word that kind of pops up, but we haven't mentioned as much, is the word innovation. And as someone who's been really in so many different positions, careers, topics as well, I mean, in your view, what does the word innovation truly mean, and how has it shaped the way you approach challenges or opportunities in your work?
So there is this root in the word which is about something new, but how this novelty actually arises. And I think it appears in between of disciplines and themes. It's quite rare that it comes out of, let's say, a very regulated and clearly defined environment. When the domains of knowledge merge and collide, it's not just a complementary thing. Sometimes it's a combustion. And this combustion is what is innovation for me. And this is how I perceive it. And this is what I wish for people to practice. It is about courage to volunteer into several domains, but it can be done. So I think it's really about courage to volunteer into several domains. It can be done with all the humility that someone else might have even greater level of proficiency in one or another domain. But then reach out to this person and just say, this is what I do not know. I think innovation is about the humility to admit that certain things are kind of, not very known and closed. And then building an environment in which those known things get explored in ecosystems and in networks. So that's how I think about innovation.
And I guess this environment also should be safe for failure, willing to take those risks, but having that control in place. I
do not know about really safety, because I think that a lot of truly innovative pieces were born in times where there was no safety and there was scarcity.
True.
What I experience, for example, in AI implementations, when company has too much budget, AI will fail. When they are more kind of, picky about what to do, they are better AI implementations. So it's not necessarily the abundance. Sometimes scarcity can give you more because you are thinking more.
Fascinating thought, yeah. But it is so true, I guess, because you spend too much time worrying about, what if, rather than just doing.
Yeah.
Very true.
And it's always about a courageous choice to go a certain path. So innovation is not just about the what, it's about the how.
Yeah, fascinating. You've mentioned a lot of books already that you've read, and avid reader, and I certainly enjoy the idea of exploring a book. But I guess, what other key moment or event or person completely changed the course of your career or your mindset?
Well, frankly, my daughter in becoming a mom completely shifted my perspectives on so many things. And I love being a mom. I love spending time with my daughter. And I changed the course of my career because of her, because I wouldn't have been satisfied if I did not give her this time. And this is why we are very close. And so this absolute power of love and dedication and response, this is really a light of my life.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And at some point, I'd love to hear her play the piano as well, especially a piece that you mentioned, L'Île Joyeuse.
Oh, I will. So I'll get you on one of the weekend for lunch. And so because she will be learning this piece when she returns from her vacation. Yeah.
Oh, it'll be so beautiful. Thank you so much. So time management was something that you touched upon briefly just now. So if you could sum it up, what tips can you offer? And, being a very, very caring mum to your daughter as well, how do you balance professional with personal time?
Well, time management is always about a very dedicated focus and understanding that you can't do it all. Mm-hmm. And there is, let's say, a moment to lean in and there's a moment to lean out. So there are myriads of books on great parenting. So one of the researchers I like a lot, and I know personally, she lives in New York. She wrote one of the best books on parenting, and she discovered, and she's a specialist in time management and organization. She discovered that 20 minutes a day of a really dedicated time is enough for a child of, let's say, 7, 8 years old. Yes, if, for example, this child is not learning piano, for example, because then you need another 1 hour and a half to really sit with the child and practice. Even if your child is a Mozart, the child needs to be animated and encouraged to do the work.
So true.
And then the child will be a pianist. And it's not about forcing, and it's about actually understanding whether this is something your child might enjoy long term. And then learning about managing frustration, your own and the frustration of a child. So time management is about really being absolutely committed to priorities. And this is what people in the abundance of social media tools and consumers don't like to do. And actually understanding that certain so-called opportunities will be missed. And I think that what is really important is to understand some non-negotiables. And that's something you learn with age. Like, for example, your health being an asset. If you are not healthy, nothing is important any longer. So if at some point in time you have a diagnosis and a treatment plan, nothing is important.
That's
so
true.
Trying to be preventive about your health and, understanding that you are, let's say, definitive good. This is something which might shift how you spend your time. So there is one exercise I'm loving doing when I mentor very senior executives and founders.
Okay.
So I'm asking them, give me the list of your goals. Then they write whatever it might be. And then I sit down with their executive assistant and I look how they spend their time. And usually how they spend their time has nothing to do with their goals.
No.
And I've never met a person who was kind of, perfect match. And this is the first wow. And then why? Why is the question. And are you doing really your job, or are you stepping into someone else's job because you hired wrongly, or you are missing a person, or maybe the goals are completely unrealistic, not realistic, or is it your own discipline, or do you need another EA because she schedules whatever? So, the solutions might be different, but I think if you don't understand, you can't act. Yeah.
I can so admit that I'm personally guilty of that too. I think it's like I have goals, and then when I look at how I spend my time, probably there'll be a week or two where it's perfectly aligned, and then there's like pretty much every other time you're just misaligned.
But it's about your agency, right? And recognizing that. And by the way, sometimes maybe if you're kind of, mind wandering and whatever, this is a good investment of your time, because maybe it's a tool for your creative process or even professional path and whatsoever.
Yeah.
So, but you need to be aware. And I think that the quality which is missing from today's people, and probably historical figures as well, is self-awareness.
Yeah. I think we need a lot more of that. And even just time in silence is already valuable enough to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very true. Oh, you take me back to my childhood as well. I remember my mum always spending time with me, practicing the piano, especially when it was coming to exams, and really just helping me, play the piece against the recording that we had as a bit of a reference. So, fun times. Thank you, Mum, for the time spent there. But in your case, what was your favorite childhood memory?
So I have actually two. So from summer and winter. So summer, frankly, really picking up mushrooms with my grandma,
nice.
Picking actually this strawberries, not let's say what we have in the gardens, but from the forest, those wild strawberries with my grandma. So those are my favorite memories from being a child. And in winter, actually decorating a Christmas tree. And obviously we were doing our own toys. And if we had oranges, they were first on a Christmas tree as a decoration.
An orange?
So oranges, because we lacked everything. So, this is why I hate so much of modern politics, pushing people into socialism.
Yeah.
Before you distribute, you need to create wealth. wealth. I am all for capitalist society, even with all the inequalities and what we have there. But we need first to create wealth to be capable to distribute. And I'm just the scarcity of the basic things. This is very much in my memory. Having said that, if we had candies, so then we were putting it on a Christmas tree. So we were with the scissors doing those kind of, serpentines type of paper cut out to put orange in and to put it on a Christmas tree. And I loved it because the Christmas tree was always different because, depending on, whether you could buy, there were not very many brands of candies, but still it was always a surprise. Mm-hmm. And rediscovering this every day, getting those candies from the Christmas tree, that was a huge treat. We did not have too many toys, but every single toy was a celebration and, brought out once a year. So that is a good memory.
The joy in scarcity, in being okay with less.
Yeah, we did not know about more.
Yeah. But it's so beautiful because these moments you really cherish, especially, the different Christmas tree every year.
Yeah.
And then I guess dismantling it would have been easy because you would have eaten all the candy on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
No, so beautiful. And I like how you have a summer and a winter memory.
Yeah.
I grew up in one season most of the time.
Well, that's obviously we had very cold winters and hot summers.
Yeah. But I guess I can have the wet season and the dry season.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And so what was one of the most challenging situations that you faced in your career to date, and how did you overcome it?
So that was quite recent, actually. And so I was recruited into the board of Wirecard, which is the largest bankruptcy in the history of Europe. And actually, I was the one who started asking questions there and bringing forensic investigators. But I was part of this infamous board. And when Wirecard imploded, frankly, I went through 18 months of death threats and things which can't be really imagined by people. I could not sleep. I faced unbelievable betrayal of people who used to be close to me. So, on the third day after Wirecard went bankrupt, I received a letter from my former husband informing me to get out of the house, which I bought and funded with every penny. So he did not contribute a single penny to this.
Oh, that's crazy.
Because he wanted to extract more money from me as long as I had some. I made a huge mistake to hire a law firm to defend me because I thought I'm covered by insurance. So, that was really something which I don't wish on anyone. And the result was, frankly, not only to taking my daughter out of her private school and, frankly, selling everything I possessed, including shoes and, whatever I had, going into another country and starting from complete scratch. I was not employable. Then, of course, a couple of years after this happened, I was inducted into Hall of Fame of Business Excellence, blah, blah, blah. But still, I lived through this life-changing experience. And so there is one lesson which I learned kind of, another time, a second time in my life. You can't consider yourself a victim. And this is, for example, what I believe is wrong with aid in the world. If you educate someone in this victim mentality, this person will never be capable to exercise agency. So there was no room for self-pity because I needed to feed my daughter, feed myself, and somehow survive. And it was really about survival.
Yeah. Give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach him to fish, you feed him for life.
Absolutely. So that's a rudimentary skill set, which I think we need to educate people about. And then, happiness is a decision. It's not just a state, it's a decision. And I learned that you might not be happy the whole day, but you can be happy every day.
That's so beautiful.
And sometimes, happiness is just, I was capable to sleep for 3 hours because I was not sleeping for months. And I had to take a very heavy medication, which was impacting my day by day. But then, for example, going into the park and there's some funny dog and then you actually pay attention and you feel happy. Or, just being capable to afford, let's say, a nice coffee in a coffee shop again. I mean, it sounds crazy, but this is what was going on. And then rebuilding, and actually then the decision that I can't waste my time on things. So this is why I started building AI Edutainment and actually writing those AI literacy books and Romy and Robbie series. And, it came out of this experience.
Yeah.
Starting to teach AI and cybersecurity at universities, understanding why Germany as a country does not work and the legal system does not work. I can give now lectures on
wow.
It can't work and how, compensation of professors is structured. It can't work. It does not have any future. Hence my decision to really leave Germany. And now I moved to Switzerland, which is much more pro-business, pro-environment, and just basic human needs.
Yeah.
Just when you walk here around and you see people, I'm sorry, taking bath in those fountains, try to do it in Munich, you will be arrested.
Yeah.
And here you have, people playing with the ice cream. So it's much more pro-humans, the whole how, cities and communities are working. I'm not saying everything is perfect.
No, but you feel taken care of.
But
definitely.
you feel, and you feel those very, very small things, which are pro-humans and not against your own citizens and taxpayers. So I like it about the country, and I like that they establish a system where, logistics is there. So transportation is working, clock works. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yes, absolutely. So, and I think we need to be very humble about the good and the bad, because bad stuff can happen to good people.
Yeah.
And there are things which are beyond your control.
But demonstrating incredible resilience in that story and the willingness to start again and the choice to be happy.
Absolutely.
I think it's so beautiful just listening to how you built something so incredible out of that.
Yeah.
And I guess also giving back in service to humanity.
Well, I think we all need to somehow balance. Consumerism, and I'm always like into this food allegory, right? So fast food will lead to obesity.
Yeah.
And it's like with taking and giving, when you educate a child, when you raise a child, you're giving as well, but you are taking so much. So does it give you more pleasure to buy a gift for someone or being presented with a gift? The majority of people, by the way, agree to give a gift is more pleasurable than to accept a gift. So look, I think it's always about balance. It's never perfect, and we are all searching, but this is what makes us human.
Very true. And we have to maintain that human spirit.
Absolutely.
So for young professionals starting out, what is the one key advice you can offer them?
You will never be done.
So true.
And I think that this just, always elevate your baseline. So what is your baseline in terms of what you know, what you believe you do not know at the age of 15, at the age of 20, at the age of 30, etc. Just always try to raise the bar. Yeah. Because once again, this is what makes you different and what makes you, I think, happy, because boundless consumerism can't make happy. And raising the bar means you still have something in your plans and there's some future for your journey. It's not just about reaction, but it's about action and agency. And I think this question, what does excellence look like for you today? The answer will be different when you respond in 10 years or in 3 years or in 20 years.
Our values shift with time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think this is really, I always ask, what does excellent mean for me? And being self-aware about this question, I think this is the advice I would give to everyone, not just a young professional. And being forgiving when you misstep, because we all misstep, and this is what makes us human.
And what makes us grow as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Incredible advice and incredible wisdom there for many, including myself. I'm somewhere mid-career now, I would say, but still learning things every day, as long as you have an open mind.
Well, Romy would have a very different response and reaction to that.
Oh, yeah?
He would sell just, a little bit sashimi and a good place to sleep. Yeah.
I have to go meet Romy later. And And so as we slowly draw to the end of what has been an incredible, eye-opening episode and just also validating episode for me that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, the existential question, Anastassia, is what would you most like to be remembered for?
She was loved by some friends and her family, and she educated 1 million people about AI.
Beautiful. So where can people find you if they want to get in touch?
So I'm obviously on LinkedIn, and I have my website, which is www.aiedutainment.ai.
Mm-hmm.
My book is on Romy and Robbie book website, and it's as well on Amazon. I've just started working on book number 2, when Romy and Robbie will be translating the language of marine animals with help of AI.
Very nice.
And I have an Instagram channel, which is at Romy and Robbie. So my podcast, AI Snacks with Romy and Robbie, not about food, it's about AI and robotics.
But the food allegories.
Food allegories, yes. And actually, I have sometimes episodes about food. For example, I interviewed one unbelievable founder, Andy Elwood. And he is actually looking into the issue of food waste. And price inflations, so for grocery in the United States, so with the help of AI, and an unbelievable entrepreneur. So I'm really blessed sometimes to meet people and have those eye-opening conversations where my mind is buzzing after. So really, really humbled by the excellence of those entrepreneurs and founders.
I'm certainly feeling it now, so I know what you mean.
No, well, thank you so much for the flowers, but the pleasure is mine. I learned some new things about civil engineering today when we were discussing your work for the city of Bern. Yeah, so I can be found on all major podcasting platforms with my podcast.
And we'll definitely put that as well as links to many other topics we've covered on today's show. So listeners, do check it out so you can go much deeper. And
I have quite a new Substack. So, so right now I'm kind of, going back mentally into my very first episodes of AI Snacks. And I am, because, I journal sometimes, not like extensive essays, but what went wrong and stuff. And I'm putting those experiences and then what the episode was about for people. And I call it a series podcast without makeup. Yeah. So, so this is on my Substack. And so consider supporting my Substack because I'm really self-funding my whole journey.
Perfect. And I'll have to check it out because I'm very curious to hear about your reflections and experience doing podcasts as well.
Yeah.
But Anastassia, thank you so much for your time, for your openness, for your willingness to come onto the show, and just for the incredible messages you've shared that I think I myself will certainly take a lot away from, and I hope our listeners will take away from as well.
And thank you so much for your time and for bringing me on. It was a real privilege, and I learned a lot from you. Thanks for being an amazing human being.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And like I do with every guest, I always give my guests the final words. So one final message for the listeners, can be anything you want for them to take away from today.
Just enjoy your life. It's too short, and be generous towards other human beings.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And that wraps up our incredibly fascinating and insightful episode with Anastassia Lauterbach. For resources on notable classical composers, ballet dancers, and opera singers, a guide to getting started with understanding AI, or just some relaxing tales of cats and robots, check out the show notes for more information over at tgcpodcast.show. And as always, thank you listeners for tuning into this episode and for your feedback and support. If you are enjoying this show, I would be incredibly grateful if you could share this podcast with your family, friends, colleagues, and even fellow AI enthusiasts. Follow this podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, and other podcast channels to stay up to date with the latest releases, or be part of the conversation on Instagram at tgcpodcast_official or our LinkedIn group. If you're curious about me or my work in general, you can also check out my website or social media. Head to petermbach.com, my YouTube channel Peter Marcus Bach, that's Marcus with a C, or Instagram at petermbach87. Give me some feedback or suggest future guests so that I can keep improving this show. The podcast's intro and outro song is called Starsky by Alex Kieran. Stay tuned for our next episode and next guest to hear how they are tackling the grand challenges.